Well, friends, welcome to this ACT talk this late afternoon, and I'm very privileged to be here talking about Indian economy and status of poverty and exclusion in India. But when I talk about Indian economy, maybe we can also relate it with many other growing economies of the world. My name is Sushant Agrawal, and I'm the director of Churches Auxiliary for Social Action in India, and we are very privileged to be one of the members of the ACT Alliance. So when you look at the map of India, that is what is our operational area. So action is there. I mean, ACT is not Geneva, but ACT, the partnership with the partners, so our action is there and there where the ACT is. Let me also just tell you that CASA, in short, is the specialized agency of the churches, Protestant and Orthodox churches in India, and we have been created with the mandate of humanitarian aid, development and advocacy, and that is very similar to what ACT's mandate is. And one thing, let me make it very clear, because there is very often this conflict between the churches and the specialized ministry. But let me tell you that I, as specialized agency, feel part of the global church, because if the churches in India is not there, then CASA is not there. So whatever we do, the glory goes to the churches in India and to the global church. And I keep telling, I mean, two of my board members are there, that if there is any pain because you leave that for me, I will take care of the pain, but you take the glory, whatever we do. Now, coming to the Indian economy, and as we know, there are about 25 countries which are categorized in the category of emerging economy. Now, it all started in the late 80s, but India became a part of the global economy from the 90s, but then also that changed the whole characteristic of India, because till that time India was more like a welfare state, and there were many welfare schemes which were prioritized for the poor and the excluded in the country. But once we become the part of the global economy, India also had to sign many treaties. India had to sign trade agreements. India had to sign with World Bank, IMF, and that changed the priorities in the country. And from that of the welfare state, it also turned its characteristic more to that of a business world. It became a part of the business world, and that started inviting a number of transnationals, international corporations, private houses also in India. Now it's very interesting to see that today India's total population is 1.223 billion people, too many people. Now if you go back to about 20 years back, when we really became the part of the global economy, the taxpayer percentage was about 12% of the total population that time. But today we have to realize what this has done. It has brought in 33.3% of the total population in the tax net. Now the advantage is, because you have the larger revenue coming into the government of India, the government of India has taken up some flagship programs which are talked about. Now you have right to employment. That means anybody, able-bodied people, they are allowed, they are entitled to have 100 days of work, right? But then I will come back to the red tapeism and the corruption, why it doesn't work. Then you have, with very high revenue, fiscal allocation, the right to education. Then you have right to food. Now the right to food, and these are very high, high valued programs. And if you look at some of the statistics, I have the full statistics, but I give you one which talks about food security program. It has to cover 67% of India's population. Now you may ask, what is the percentage of government claimed people below the poverty line? Now official official documents talk about 23% of the people. But here is a contradiction when Government of India wants to cover 67% of the India's population under the food security program. That means if any family has got 5 people in the family, every family every month is going to get 5 kgs of grain. One is the fine grain they will receive, and one is the coarse grain they will receive. That means if you have 5 people, 25 kgs of grain is going to 67% of the population of India. Now the whole debate is, I think WTO has already raised this. Now what is the production there in India? And if India is going to come down to the world market, how it is going to affect the food availability situation also in the world. So this kind of program was only possible because of the revenue which has gone up in India. Now, I like to also highlight the myth. I mean, when you see the hoarding, the incredible India, and many a time, at least people like me in India ask, what is so incredible? When you have still to feed 67% of the population of India, then what is so incredible? Now the whole myth of the Indian economy is, people say, is it inclusive? And I say it is not inclusive. Because when you have only about 33% of the total population of India benefited from what has happened as the economic globalization in India, then it cannot be called as inclusive economic growth in the country. The second very fundamental question is that whether attracting foreign direct investment, that is what had happened. When the world recession took place, economic recession in 2008, now what the developed nation did, they did not do any charity to the developing nations and the growing economies. Their investments went to the growing economies. And now after if you look at the statistics of 2012-13 and 13-14, now you will see even the United States, the growth rate which had gone below 1%, now it has come up to 1 point some percent. So there is a slight improvement. Similarly, you will see that happening also in Europe. Now what has happened, the direct foreign investment which had gone to the growing economy, that time it helped the growing economy, but then all of a sudden it is withdrawn. And that has really cracked the whole economy of the growing economies of the world. Now, there is an analysis available. If you see, because of all this happening in the economy, in the growing economies of the world, the depreciation of the currency. And that has happened not only in India. And if you see the statistics, the South African currency the depreciation was 21%. Indian money depreciation is 19%. And subsequently, when you go down, you will see the list of the countries, how the depreciation has affected the economy of such growing economies around the world. Now, basically, take the crude oil. And when you have $109 crude oil per gallon available, and now you have the money depreciated, you can understand the whole economy, how it can be affected, as well as with the effect of the other impacts which such depreciations have caused. Now, also you must have heard very unfortunate incident. I am talking now about the atrocities. Now we have heard about the Dalit challenges in India. We heard this morning from Julia about shrinking space for the civil society, so I'm not going to talk much about that. We have heard already that. But then let me highlight that when you talk that you have the higher percentage of literacy, you have higher percentage of people who are taxpayer, but still the women are not safe in India. What happened in December last year has, I think, shaken the conscience not only of the Indian men, women, but also it has given the kind of message that what kind of atrocities can take place against Indian women. And also let us not forget that now with the growing number of middle class, you have increasing number of domestic violence in India. And therefore this is a matter of worry. Now another thing is the huge mining which take place, and mining is not only causing the climate challenges, but mining is also displacing the tribals, because most of the mining where it takes place are the tribal dwelling areas. And today you will see either the migration and displacement. Many people are today without their homestead land. So that is another challenge in India today as far as the poverty is concerned. When you talk about minorities are not safe. Still that sense of fear, sense of uncertainties are still there. And minority in India, when you have 85% majority of the Hindus, where Christian population is 2.3%, then Muslim population is 12%. And you must be hearing the number of stories against the atrocities against the Muslims. And that is what is happening, and largest number of people, those who are poor, also are in the Muslim community. And there is there are by law, there are certain protections available to them, but still I think it's very difficult situation, especially for the minorities in India. Politics is on the line of religion, caste, right? These still play a very vital role in the politics of India. And when you realize that they are the lawmakers in India who do not have the ability to uphold the minorities, you can understand what stand they can take in favor of the minority. Now I have just 2-3 minutes more. Quickly let me tell you that the tribal population in India is about 8.2% and Dalit population in India is 16.2%. And these two are the most vulnerable community for which we will have to work. And our present role, being the ACT Alliance member, the present focus of CASA is to deal with the structural poverty with the rights-based approach, which is a very difficult approach. And morning we heard that those who are into this mode of operation are always targeted not only by the structures, but also targeted by the state. So you have to really maneuver, and especially in India, if you see our coverage, when you have to work in such large areas, entire nation, then we have to be really tactful, but still we have to make sure that we work for the rights and entitlements of the people, because we firmly believe that only going and doing some physical kind of social work is not going to help anymore. It is not going to change their situation, and that is not going to transform their lives. I think very important is that our actions are such which empowers the community, which empowers the Dalit, which empowers tribal, so that their voices are amplified. And that is what our role is. We are not into taking their flag and marching in front of them. I think our role is enabling them to take up the flag today with all power and say we are ready to march, because we want to fight against injustice, we want to fight against the situation which creates and disturbances in the peace, and we want to restore our dignity of life. That is very, very important. And if the justice and peace does not live in restoration of the dignity of life, then I think that is not transformational development. It is not a holistic development where we can say that we are God's people because we have been created in the image of God, we are equal. I think this is the fight of equality. This is the fight for justice. This is the fight to establish peace, and this is the fight where we can enable them to restore dignity of life. So I'll end by saying that God of life, lead us to justice and peace, which can restore the dignity of life of the poor people in India. Thank you.